Obviously, for John Mateer, it was not the showing that he wanted to have his first week back from injury. He didn't have a full week of practice. He didn't even really get to throw the ball much in practice in that week leading up to Texas. It really was a questionable call to throw him in the game there. And especially in what was the biggest game of the season, and I think even to this point, it's going to stand out as that was the defining moment for Oklahoma throughout this season because of that Texas loss, Oklahoma, and the way that they lost, Oklahoma fans, and I think even just the program has to have a little bit less confidence in themselves going forward. I don't think necessarily the program is in terms of the coaches or the players, but I just think there's some lack of confidence now because of that loss. I think the players can bounce back just fine. I think they can show some things that they could show the rest of the fan base and prove us wrong, but the fan base definitely has a lack of confidence in this team because of that performance against Texas. And a big part of that was because of John Mateer. He wasn't ready to go, and it didn't seem that way in many ways for many reasons, was not ready to go in that Texas win. But, after throwing those three interceptions against Texas, he ends up turning it around, bouncing it back with a very composed and a very efficient performance against South Carolina. Didn't put up video game stats, didn't put up the stats that you would have expected to see from him if he were 100% healthy and never went through that surgery, but he had a very, very complete performance. A very, very composed and efficient. I think those are two words that really stand out to me when you look at John Mateer. He wasn't putting the ball into harm's way. There was a couple that could have been intercepted, but it wasn't necessarily that he put the ball in harm's way. There was one that was a really good play on the defenders. There was another one that kind of bounced off the hands, could have been picked off. But just a really good, solid game overall. 18 of 26 for passing, 150 yards, one touchdown through the air, no turnovers. He even had, I believe, 14 yards rushing on the day as well, which was actually really nice to see that John Mateer didn't run the ball and Oklahoma still ran the ball well and efficiently, effectively. And that's just a huge takeaway from this Oklahoma team that had no run game outside of John Mateer in the first couple of weeks, in the first several weeks. So, no turnovers. That's exactly what the Oklahoma Sooners needed after that big loss against Texas, to turn around and have a big game against South Carolina, to get yourselves ready for now what seems like the next biggest game on the schedule in Ole Miss, because Ole Miss isn't joking around. I know they lost to Georgia, and we'll talk about Ole Miss a little bit later on. They're still a very good team, and I think Lane Kiffin has this program in a very good spot. So it was a much-needed game from John Mateer and the Oklahoma offense. He led touchdown drives of 75 yards, 92 yards in one drive, showcased some really improved decision-making. It looked like the John Mateer prior to the Kent State game, where he didn't play. So going back, what would that have been against Auburn, Temple, Michigan, and Illinois State? That it looked like that John Mateer showed up against South Carolina. Now, didn't go out there full force and throw, like I said, video game stats or anything, but he put up good numbers, solid numbers, and it was efficient. That's all you need. It was a very confident game from John Mateer. You go forward with John Mateer and say, all right, he's back. I think we got our quarterback, and we got him back in there and performing at full strength. So really good stuff. Connected with Isaiah Satania for crucial 20-yard touchdown pass in the third quarter, extended the lead to 24-7. That was a really beautiful dime, and we'll actually dive into some of that here this week. So stay tuned, because we will kind of dive into some of these really big plays. Didn't have time to get everything kind of put together and pieced together for us here today. And even added a perfect 40-yard punt. That was probably the highlight of the day, because I think you even have to give John Mateer credit for the safety, in the sense that he had that little 40-yard pooch punt, and then Elijah Thomas gets down there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Elijah Thomas gets down there, makes the perfect catch, downs it right there inside the 1-yard line. And then Oklahoma's able to get a safety off of it, which we'll get to that one here in a moment as well. A big-time stop for the defense to get that safety. But I think in some regard, you have to credit John Mateer for that safety and give some of the, at least one of those points over to him, or split it and say he gets credit for the 2 points, as well as Marcus Strong on the defense getting the tackle there in the end zone for the safety. But John Mateer's punt, that has to be the highlight of the day for him. He had some good throws and everything, some good drives, but that was just it was one of those plays that you don't expect from the quarterback, and even when it happens, you don't really expect it to go down to perfection. And that one was down to perfection, leading to the safety. So really big. Even Mateer's quote after the game, he kind of really captured his mindset perfectly throughout the game because he says, I expected better than that. Talking about the Texas game, and today, whether I was feeling good or not, I was going to play. Got myself to a good point. The team was in a good spot, and yeah, played well. So really good response from John Mateer. Not only did we get the good response to the media throughout that week of losing to Texas, but then you get a good response from John Mateer leading into the next week and going into that South Carolina win. So really big win for the Sooners, really big bounce back for John Mateer, and it feels like he's got his confidence back. It feels like he's got his moxie back. It feels like he's back to full strength. And there's still some that I think the grip might be bothering him a little bit, but he's not letting it affect his game overall. So that's some really good news from John Mateer. Big game against South Carolina there.